There is a proliferation worldwide of nuclear arms, and Germany is in no way prepared for that. We need to protect growth, and that means we cannot just increase taxes because that's bad for growth. If Trump wants a war, the European Union does have the ability for countervailing measures, for instance, taxes on IT companies and tariffs, so that should be the message.
Germany's economy is still struggling, just weeks away from an election. Joining us now is Clemens Fuest, president of the Ifo Institute. Clemens, Germany's economy has contracted for a second straight year. You and I have been talking about what needs to be done for a while now. Why can't the German government get a grip on the economy?
Well, the last government tried, but it couldn't agree on an agenda. And then the coalition broke up. And now we are without a government for some time. And the new government will be around maybe in March, or if it's very quick, or April or May or something like that. And they will then hopefully come up with a new agenda. The last government did have some ideas that could support growth. But in the end, they couldn't agree on implementing that. And I guess we need to wait for the next government.
OK, well, we'll get into the elections in just a bit. But first of all, you come up with a regular assessment of how businesses feel about the economy in Germany. And it looks like sentiment has unexpectedly risen. But is this just a blip, as the likes of ING and Deutsche Bank have said today?
Yeah, it does look like a blip. Companies are telling us, yes, the current business situation has improved a little, but this is just a month. And at the same time, companies are telling us that for the next 6 months, they expect the situation to worsen again. So overall, that doesn't really look like a turnaround. So I'm afraid we'll have to wait for that. What these numbers confirm is that the economy finds itself in some kind of stagnation. It's not really a strong downturn, but it's a stagnation at a low level, and we are just having a hard time getting out of that.
OK, well, let's look into some of the risks. So it looks like Trump is willing to be more aggressive to achieve his goals through tariffs, though no blanket tariffs on EU products have been announced yet. But what should Europe and, of course, Germany be doing to mitigate that risk?
Well, I think, first of all, Europe has to be united. Europe does have a lot of market power if it acts in a united manner. And that's not so difficult because the responsibility for foreign trade and tariffs is at the EU level. Now, I think the EU should go to Washington, or European leaders should go to Washington with two messages. Message number one, the EU wants to cooperate with the US. There is no interest on the side of the EU in a tariff war. Message number two, if Trump wants a war, the European Union does have the ability for countervailing measures, for instance, taxes on IT companies and tariffs. So that should be the message.
OK, but 10% of German exports go to the US, and much of that comes from the car industry, which is, of course, critical in Germany. In that sense, should Germany be diversifying its export offerings? So should we restructure here to kind of defend against what those tariffs could do if they do come?
Well, diversifying in a very short amount of time is difficult, but diversification is, of course, the right strategy. And what Trump will achieve if he does introduce tariff is a very quick diversification. He will speed up this diversification and take the US out of global markets. So it's maybe not the smartest strategy. But yes, diversification is important. The EU has just finally concluded a free trade agreement with Mercosur. And the German government should, of course, and does support that. One thing we shouldn't forget is the European market itself. We have an internal market, but it's far from complete. So deepening the internal market would be another strategy to dampen the impact of a possible trade conflict with the United States. At the same time, I still hope that the Americans and the Europeans can agree and understand jointly that it is in their mutual interest to avoid a trade war.
Okay, but just to touch one last time on this diversification point. So Germany is also, of course, its car industry facing competition from China in machine building as well, of course. So where should Germany look next for its next kind of champion industry? Is it something that is already there, so something like chemicals, or should it pour investment money into something like AI? Where do you think it should go?
There are two areas that are under pressure, the automotive industry and the energy-intensive industry. That's roughly 30% of value added in German manufacturing. Now, there's still 70% which are very diversified. You know, a lot of the companies in this area are the so-called hidden champions. These are companies working in very different areas, often companies which are highly specialized, offering highly specialized products, which is less vulnerable to, for instance, competition from China. And I think the German government, at least, or German economic policy, doesn't have to define the sector where Germany is supposed to be successful in the future, but it should create favorable conditions for these other 70%, for the hidden champions, also for new companies, for innovation, for startup companies. In this area, we are lagging behind. We have too few new companies, and there's a lot of potential there. So create favorable conditions for new businesses to grow and for the healthy part of German manufacturing to grow. That's what I would recommend.
Okay, with the federal election coming up in a few weeks, what factors are you watching to try and predict where the economy could go next, depending on what parties and coalitions could come together out of that?
Well, I think the most important issue in the German economy at the moment is corporate investment. Corporate investment is currently 10% below the level of 2019, and that means there is not very much confidence in the future of Germany as an investment location, and that absolutely needs to change. So the question to the next government is, how can that be changed? And I guess the answer to that should be taxes are the highest, corporate taxes are the highest in the G7. There's too much regulation, too much red tape. Energy supply is highly uncertain in Germany, and more needs to be done to make labor supply attractive. The good news is there are a lot of things the next government can do. The challenge is really getting it done and finding a majority for these things. At the same time, there are challenging issues, in particular the link between demographic change and social insurance, pensions, old age care. So here reforms are needed, and those will be unpopular reforms, and governments have so far shied back from that. We see that parties are very reluctant to discuss this before the elections. So there's a lot of work to do, and we are probably facing also distributional conflicts and tough debates.
Okay, I kind of want to dig into that just a little bit here. So it seems that there's certain uncomfortable truths which governments will have to face, especially in these difficult times, that are just not part of the election debate, especially because they can be tough to implement. So things like perhaps increasing taxes or whatever it might be, reducing the pension age. What do you want to see? What are the top things you'd like to see discussed and debated as part of the campaigning before Election Day on the 23rd of February?
Well, I suppose top of the agenda should be the security situation. So the US is withdrawing from Europe. There is a very serious threat from Russia. There is a proliferation worldwide of nuclear arms, and Germany is in no way prepared for that. There has been the special fund for the armed forces amounting to 100 billion introduced in 2022. But that money will be spent very quickly, and we are lacking a strategy, how to address these security issues. Part of that is more military spending that's unavoidable, and how will that be financed? I think that's part of these difficult discussions. At the same time, we need to protect growth, and that means we cannot just increase taxes because that's bad for growth. So we need to change our spending patterns, and that means cut spending in areas other than the military, probably also in areas other than infrastructure, and that will lead to difficult debates. It means basically cuts, for instance, in pension spending, it means reforms are needed of the health system to bring down spending there.
Okay, some difficult and comfortable discussions ahead, certainly. But I want to just end on this question. So some economic and business associations in Germany have called for a day of protest called the Wirtschaftswarntag, the Economic Warning Day. Will you be marching with them?
Well, I won't be marching with them, but I think it is important that attention is drawn to the economic challenges. So a strong economy is the basis of the very large German welfare state. And if we want to preserve that, we need a strong economy, and governments should spend more attention on this issue. We see that in the election campaigns, governments are very much discussing little nice things they can do, distributing goodies like cutting the value-added tax, and that's completely beside the point. We need a serious discussion about how we can get back to growth. So in my mind, as it were, I'm marching with them, yes.
Okay, so serious debate is needed ahead of the German election. Clemens Fuest, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.